we are returning to our series on the Fusus al-Hikam, and I think we're going to carry on from where we left off. But because we have some new faces, I would like to do a very quick recap of the previous content that we have covered. So that includes the Muqaddama, the introduction, and the first fasl on Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam. Does anyone want to give a brief comment on what we covered in the introduction? What is the Fusus al-Hikam and what is it about? The Fusus al-Hikam is the book that is given to Sheikh al-Akbar by whom? Rasulullah in a dream, which he has in Muharram, if I'm not mistaken. And he gives it to him, and he says, give this book to the people that they may benefit from it. And then the Sheikh al-Akbar replies, I hear and I obey. And so he wrote the book without adding anything to it and without subtracting anything from it. So this is a very interesting question as to how do we actually read the Fusus al-Hikam, because these are in a way the words of Rasulullah himself, if you take that seriously enough. And the students of Sheikh al-Akbar, even the ones who disagree with him, do take that very seriously. And so the first sentence of the whole book starts with Alhamdulillah al-Munzili al-Hikam ala qulub al-kalam. And so this book is about the kalam, the words of Allah. Who are the kalam? They are the anbiya. And the wisdom that is bestowed upon them and upon their hearts, right? Why upon their hearts? Because the heart is the organ that receives and is receptive to the divine and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to his revelations. And so the prophets, and not just the prophets, but the whole of existence are his words. Alhamdulillah munzil al-hikam ala qulub al-kalam بأحاديث طريق الأمم من المقام الأقدم وإن اختلفت النحل والملل لاختلاف الأمم. And so he bestows his wisdom upon their hearts by way of what is called the straight path, the path of the ahadiyya. And so students of the Fusus, you'll know that there's the ahadiyya and the wahadiyya, right? The ahadiyya is the level, the divine level that flows through everything without exception, but we can't know it. We can't even really speak about it. From maqam al-aqdam, from the most ancient station, even if sects and religions and creeds diverge, it is still the straight path. And so this is a riddle that the Shaykh al-Akbar poses, and it will be answered throughout the rest of the text and the rest of the Fusus al-Hikam. How is it that the ahadiyya, which is not just the oneness of Allah, his ahadiyya, his uniqueness, but it is the fact that his way flows throughout the whole of creation and it is straight. So everyone is on the straight path, even if there is a diversity and divergence of sects, creeds, religions, and philosophies. So how does that happen, right? How can everything be straight but divergent at the same time? So that's from the introduction. And then we covered Faris Adam alayhi salam. And what is that fuss about?
Would anybody like to give a recap? Please, please unmute if you'd like to share. It's not a rhetorical question.
Yeah, so the names of Allah, thank you, Zanira, very much, and so good to see you again. The names of Allah and Insan al-Kamal, that is right. What else? That the Insan Kamal is the Khalifat Allah ala ard, and that the whole cosmos is upheld and preserved min ajli, for his sake, and his also means her. It can also be her. It's upheld for his sake, and it's upheld for her sake. That is the insan kamil, but specifically the Khalifat Allah ala ard. And we are created in the image of the divine. That is absolutely correct. So everything that we have comes from the divine, and everything that Allah has, we have, but in a manner that is appropriate to us and to our level, and not in a way that offends his level, because his attributes are absolute, whereas our attributes are relative. And this is why every single thing you see throughout the cosmos is just a manifestation of Allah and is a reflection. It is a reflection of Him. What's one of the big metaphors of false Adam? The mirror, right? The whole cosmos, thank you, exactly, Zanira. The whole cosmos is His mirror. He looks into this mirror and he sees himself in the manifestation of his names, and we look into it and we see him. We are each other's mirror. The whole cosmos is a reflection of him. And when the insan kamil embodies all the divine names in harmony, in accordance with the Sharia, in accordance with its adab, then the cosmos is preserved. What happens at the end of time? At the end of time,
we return to the divine.
We return to the divine. How so? We return to him because the number of perfect insan kamil decreases. And so with that, the connecting link between heaven and earth is broken. And that ushers in the final hour and the end of the cosmos as we know it. And then he says, then this affair transfers to the next affair, which is the next world. And that's when it transfers. When the last insan kamil passes away. And that leads us into the Fus sheath. What did we cover so far in Fus sheath? Fus sheath is about gifts. Yes, it's about gifts, exactly. The gifts of what? The essence and the names. The gifts of the divine essence and the gifts of the names, and the different categories of awliya who are aware of these gifts that come from Allah, that lead them to a knowledge of what their predispositions, and as a result, the secret of predestination, al-qadr wal-qada, the al-ataya al-ilahiyya, the divine gift giving, and how everything is a gift. So if Allah creates the cosmos, it is by extension a gift. Is by extension a gift, and there is a diversity of gifts from the diversity of divine names. Now, there is one particular individual who attains to the highest level of knowledge in this regard. Who is he? With regard to how much you can know about Allah and His gift giving, and about Allah Himself, the highest divine knowledge. Who is this individual? Sayyidina Muhammad, yes, but there's another individual that I am thinking of. It is the seal of Muhammadan sainthood. That is right, the seal of saints, the Khatam al-Awliya and the Khatam al-Muhammadiyya. They are the ones who have the highest knowledge of Allah with regard to what He is. And then, of course, the Khatam al-Rasul, the Khatam al-Anbiya, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his rank supersedes their rank. That's why Dawood al-Qaysari says that there is no fadl, la fadl, there's no fadl over Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? But we are describing something called the Haqiqat Muhammadiyya, which has its madahir, its loci, places of manifestation, right? So it cannot be superior to itself. So the madahir of the Haqiqat, the madahir of the Haqiqat al-Muhammadiyya includes the Qutb, the Aqtab, the Afrad, and the Anbiya. It cannot be superior to itself. So the Khatam al-Walaya al-Muhammadiyya is the seal of Muhammad's sainthood. How many seals are there apart from the seal of prophethood? 3. So you've got First of all, the Khatam Walaya Muhammadiyya, then the Khatam Walaya al-Amma, and then the Khatam al-Awlad, right? Now, there's another topic this leads into, but first let's quickly talk about the three Khatams, the three Khawatam. Who is the Khatam Walaya Muhammadiyya, and what does he do? He is, at least according to Ibn Arabi, himself. He believes that it is himself, exactly, yes. He believes that he is the Khatam Walaya Muhammadiyya, and he seals the coming of the Muhammadan awliya, who are upon the heart of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And yes, he is the flower of paradise, that's right. The most extraordinary creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then the Khatam Walayat al-Amma, who is that? That's Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, exactly, thank you. And he is the one who seals the coming of the other degrees of walaya, of the afrad. So before the second coming, so we're not talking about the first coming when Sayyidina Isa is born. We're talking about the second coming. See Joshua, I think I can see you changing your slide. There we go. Okay. In the second coming, he will seal the other levels of walaya, the higher levels, which belong to the other prophets. And then the third khatam al-awlad, the seal of the children. Who is that and what is that? He is the last wali to be born on earth, and he is, as you say, a pair of twins. So, and he is born in China. So the Sheikh Al-Akbar recounts a very vivid image as these two twins are born, and he'll be born at the feet of his own sister, right, as she is given birth. And so he is the last human being on earth and the last saint simultaneously. He is upon the heart of who? He is upon the heart of Sayyidina Shith alayhi salam in relation to this fuss. He is upon the heart of Sayyidina Shith, which means, what does it mean for a wali to be on the heart of a prophet or to walk in the footsteps of a prophet? This is a very interesting subject. He inherits from their secrets, yes, and his spiritual vision and modality derives from them, from that particular prophet. So the spiritual modality of this last saint is the modality of Sayyidina Shith alayhi salam, which is to do with the knowledge of gift giving, right? So for example, if I say that a wali is upon the heart of Sayyidina Isa, that means his personality is like the personality of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam. So he's very jamali. And if I say that a saint is upon the heart of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, this saint is very jalali, very majestic, just like Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam is very majestic. If Sayyidina Isa has the karama of walking on water, then this saint also has the karama of walking on water. If this saint inherits from Musa alayhi salam, and Musa alayhi salam, his face shone with light. It would shine with light. The same thing would happen to this saint as well. And it's a blinding kind of light, because there's two kinds of luminosity, one that's like the moon and one that's like the sun. So that's what it means to be upon the heart of a saint and to walk in his footsteps. And it means to also experience what they experience. So this saint who's upon the hearts of Shith will experience what he's experienced and inherit from his knowledge. Then when he passes away, there is no more saints on the earth, and that's when the hour will arise, because it is the perfect man or woman, insan kamil, that stabilizes the cosmos. Without the stabilizing factor, everything ends. And then we move into the akhirah. So the last thing we covered were the details of the Khatam al-Awliya al-Muhammadiyya, who has a vision. What is this vision that he has? He has a vision of the Kaaba, right? And the vision the Kaaba has is analogous and a repetition of something that happens to Rasulullah himself in his own life in the seerah, and a vision that he has too. And that is correct. He has a vision, Sheikh al-Akbar, the Khatam al Muhammadiyya has a vision of the Kaaba as being built of alternating gold and silver bricks. Alternating gold and silver bricks. But there's 2 bricks missing, which repeats the vision of the Khatam al-Anbiya, Khatam Rasul. He has a vision of the Kaaba, which has 1 missing brick. And then he sees that he himself is the missing brick. So the Khatam al-Muhammadiyya, he sees the Kaaba is missing 2 bricks. And he himself are those 2 bricks. What are those 2 bricks? It is the golden brick of Walaya and the silver brick of the Sharia. And so he is the one who completes the Sharia, and he is the one who upholds the Sharia, but he's also the same one who draws his knowledge directly from the source itself, which is what true Walaya is. Direct ma'arifah of the divine and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The gold brick, by definition, is superior to the silver brick. Does this mean that the wali is superior to the prophet? The answer is no. The answer is no. But what happens is that in the same person of the prophet or messenger, his own walaya is superior to his own function of being a prophet. And every messenger, there is messenger, prophet, and saint. His sainthood is superior to his prophethood and messengership. But this does not make the saint who is an inherent to the prophet superior to the prophets, right? So we avoid that problem and mistake. So let's carry on then. See, Joshua, I think we've read this paragraph, right?
Yes, this is the part that we had covered last time. So section 17 here would be the next session. Would you like to start here?
Yes, please. And I'd like to have at least a couple of volunteers. Just a last point. So it means that the seal of Muhammadan sainthood has access to the original source of revelation, as do the other awliya who walk this path himself. He has access to the original source of revelation himself. So so the revelation can descend upon him, and he understands it in all its multifarious shades and meanings and dimensions. And he gives birth to new meanings that were not understood before from the original source of revelation. What he cannot do, and if someone claims this, he's a fraud, is he can't bring a new revelation that abrogates the previous revelation. He cannot bring a new hukum or ruling that abrogates the previous ruling that's established by Rasulullah. But he can receive new knowledge of the same revelation from its original source. And that is what the major awliya all hope to do in their lifetime. Yes, let's carry on, please. Let's have 1 volunteer and then a second.
If you would like to read, please just maybe use the raise hand function so we can go in order of who volunteers.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you, Joshua. Reem, please. Bismillah.
بسم الله. فكل نبي من لدن آدم إلى آخر نبي ما منهم أحد يأخذ إلا من مشكاة خاتم النبيين وإن تأخر وجود طينته فإنه بحقيقته موجود وهو قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم كنت نبيا وآدم بين الماء والطين وغيره من الأنبياء ما كان نبيا إلا حين بعث وكذلك خاتم الأولياء كان وليا وآدم بين الماء والطين وغيره من الأولياء ما كان وليا إلا بعد تحصيله شرائط الولاية من الأخلاق الإلهية في الاتصاف بها من كون الله تعالى تسمى بالولي الحميد.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Second reader, please, and then we'll carry on. Okay. No other readers, then we'll carry on, inshallah. So,
I can go ahead if you want.
please, bismillah. Who's that?
Minna.
Oh, hi Manna, كيفك? Good to see you again. Yes, Bismillah. Perfect.
لا. فكل نبي من لدن آدم إلى آخر نبي ما منهم أحد يأخذ إلا من مشكاة خاتم النبيين وإن تأخر وجود طينته فإنه
Yes.
بحقيقته موجود وهو قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم كنت نبيا وآدم بين الماء والطين وغيره من الأنبياء ما كان نبيا إلا حين بعث وكذلك خاتم الأولياء كان وليا وآدم بين الماء والطين وغيره من الأولياء ما كان وليا إلا بعد تحصيله شرائط الولاية من الأخلاق الإلهية في الاتصاف بها من كون الله تعالى تسمى بالولي الحميد.
Thank you so much. Yumna, go ahead.
فخاتم الرسل من حيث ولايته.
Sorry, we're still gonna repeat this one more time. فكل نبي. Okay, no one
خاتم
else?
الرسل من حيث ولايته نسبته مع الخاتم لولاية نسبة الأنبياء والرسل معه فإن الولي الرسول النبي
Yeah,
وخاتم
we're gonna talk about the first paragraph first, but thank you so much. Perfect. Okay, so thank you so much. Okay, so
do you need one more volunteer?
Yeah, but I don't see a hand, so if someone sees the hand, let me know.
It's Hella Drubi, right?
Hi, Hala, كيفك? Yeah, good to see
I
you. Yeah,
can't
please.
hear.
That's perfect. Go ahead. Yes. Sorry, Hala, can you hear us now? Okay, maybe there's a technical issue.
Maybe, yeah, I think
Uh,
well we can
Sorry, I was asking, do you need one more volunteer?
yeah, Hala, please, Bismillah. No, that'd be perfect. Thank you so
I
much.
can't hear. Yes? Do you hear
Yeah,
me?
we can hear you, but I don't think you can hear
I
us.
don't hear anyone.
yeah,
but I don't hear.
exactly.
Okay,
فكل نبي
so
من لدن آدم إلى آخر نبي ما منهم أحد. This is the part.
One second. So
Okay. فكل نبي من لدن آدم إلى آخر نبي ما منهم أحد يأخذ إلا من مشكاة خاتم النبيين وإن تأخر وجود طينته فإنه بحقيقته موجود وهو قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم كنت نبيا وآدم بين الماء والطين وغيره من الأنبياء ما كان نبيا إلا حين بعث وكذلك خاتم الأولياء كان وليا وآدم بين الماء والطين وغيره من الأولياء ما كان وليا إلا بعد تحصيله شرائط الولاية من الأخلاق الإلهية في الاتصاف بها من كون الله تعالى تسمى بالولي الحميد.
I think it should be to Sama as well. Thank you so much,
No, I can't
Hala.
hear.
It's perfect.
I will join again.
Okay, but thank you so much, Hala, but we can hear you. Okay, so if anyone's not familiar with this hadith, let me know. But I think it's familiar to most people here, right? So every prophet only became a prophet during the time of his birth on this earth, except for Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He was already a prophet when Adam was between clay and water, when he was still not made. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was already a prophet. What is that an allusion to? That is an allusion to the Haqiqat al-Muhammadiyah, which was present. So he was aware of himself. He was conscientious of himself even before Adam was born. And so the Shaykh Al-Akbar makes an astonishing claim, which I haven't heard anywhere else, which is that it's the same thing for the Khatam Walaya Muhammadiyah. The Khatam, or even he says Khatam al-Awliya. The Khatam al-Awliya was a wali and aware of his sainthood and was already a wali before the other saints were ever born. And the other saints became saints when they were born, and they became they became adorned with the divine characteristics and the divine ethics and mannerisms. When they became divinely adorned with the correct manners, then they were, when they fulfilled those conditions, that's when they became a saint. But the Khatam al-Awliya was already a saint before any saint was ever born. And so he shares this incredible connection with the Khatam al-Anbiya. And so if you have not seen this paragraph yet, it's in the beginning of the Futuhat. It's a vision that the Shaykh al-Akbar has, and he is being crowned with this station when he goes to Mecca al-Mukarramah, and he has a vision in which all the prophets are present, right? If you've taken the course on his life, you would have heard this vision. And all the angels are present. And then he sees Rasulullah sitting on his throne, august and majestic. And to his right is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and to his left is Umar bin Khattab, and before him is Uthman bin Affan, Dhul Nurayn, right? And sitting beneath them is Sayyidina Ali, conversing with the Khatam Walay al-Amma, Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam. And then when Rasulullah sees Shaykh al-Akbar, he says to him that there is a portion of me, but the Arabic word is sha'r, it's a piece of hair. There's a portion of me that can no longer stand to be away from you. So come and take your rightful place in this maqam. And then the Shaykh al-Akbar steps onto that maqam, and he sees what's written on the maqam in blue light. This is the station of the true inheritor of the Sharia and this religion. He is the rightful heir to the law. And so that is a testament to his role of being the Khatam al-Muhammadiyya and the Khatam al-Awliya. Can we move on to the next paragraph, please, with a couple of volunteers? Yes, Zanira, Bismillah. Thank you so much.
هقرأ.
Yes,
Should I start?
and yes, and then it's Munira after that. Yes, go ahead. Bismillah.
Okay.
فخاتم الرسل من حيث ولايته نسبته مع الخاتم للولاية نسبته الأنبياء والرسل معه فإنه الولي الرسول النبي وخاتم الأولياء الولي الوارث الآخذ عن الأصل المشاهد للمراتب وهو حسنة من حسنات خاتم المرسل محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم مقدم الجماعة والسيد ولد آدم في فتح باب الشفاعة فعين حالا خاصا ما عمم وفي هذا الحال الخاص تقدم على الأسماء الإلهية فإن الرحمن ما شفع عند المنتقم في أهل البلاء إلا بعد شفاعة الشافعين ففاز محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم بالسيادة في هذا المقام الخاص فمن فهم المراتب والمقامات لم يعسر عليه قبول مثل هذا الكلام.
Thank you so much. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And then Munira, please.
The same part or the one below?
لا
No,
وأما
the
same
same one,
part
yes.
ولا below؟
No, the same one. So فخاتم الرسول من حيث ولايته.
فخاتم الرسل من حيث ولايته نسبته مع الخاتم للولاية نسبة الأنبياء والرسل معه فإنه الولي الرسول النبي وخاتم الأولياء الولي الوارث الآخذ عن الأصل المشاهد للمراتب وهو حسنة من حسنات خاتم المرسل محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم مقدم الجماعة وسيد ولد آدم في فتح باب الشفاعة فعين حالا خاصا ما عمم وفي هذه الحال الخاص تقدم على الأسماء الإلهية فإن الرحمن ما شفع عند المنتقم في أهل البلاد دي راح صار صغير سوري صغر الخط.
Can you see it now?
مش فاهم الخط صغر
For me, it looks big. بس أنا ما بعرف. It could be on your side, but I don't know for the rest of the people. It looks big to me.
I can start. Where did you reach? Where did you reach? وفي حال
في أهل البلاء إلا بعد.
في أهل البلاء إلا بعد شفاعة الشافعين، ففاز محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم بالسيادة في هذا المقام الخاص. فمن هم المراتب والمقامات لم يعثر عليه قبول مثل هذا الكلام.
Yes, thank you so much. So this paragraph is a doozy, but see, Joshua, if you could just make it just a bit bigger. So yes, this alludes to something he said previously in the chapter, so we'll try to refresh on this idea as well. But he said something about the Mishkat al-Anbiya and Mishkat Nubuwa and Mishkat al-Walaya. What did he say about those Mishkat? What does he say about those Mishkat? He says that all the prophets take their Nubuwa from where? The Mishkat or the Khatam al-Anbiya, right? Who was Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Where, and now you've got Walaya, Mishkat al-Walaya. Where do the awliya take their Walaya from? Where do they draw their Walaya from? They draw their Walaya from the Mishkat al-Khatam al-Walaya Muhammadiyya. Now, this raises an interesting question.
يعني مشكات النور مش هيك؟
Yeah, but it's more than Mishkat al-Nur. But yeah, exactly. هو نفس الشيء في آية النور. Exactly. الله نور السماوات والأرض. ومثل نوره كمشكات. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So the Mishkat is, if you translate into English, it's a niche. It's where you place the light in.
Yes.
So where do we draw the light of Nubuwah from? Mishkat Khatam al-Anbiya. But where do you draw the Nur Walaya from? Mishkat Khatam al-Walaya al-Muhammadiyya. Now, every prophet is a wali. So the Shaykh al-Akbar goes further and says that means every prophet, insofar as the prophet is a wali, draws his own walaya from Mishkat Walaya al-Muhammadiyya. From Mishkat Khatam Walaya Muhammadiyya. That means the Shaykh al-Akbar believed that every prophet draws his walaya, not his nubuwah, but draws his walaya from him, which is an astonishing claim to make. And so he becomes even more specific with this sentence. فخاتم الرسول من حيث ولايته نسبته. So what is the relationship of the seal of the messengers to the seal of Muhammadan sainthood? What is his relationship? His relationship is the same relationship that the seal of Muhammadan sainthood has to the other prophets messengers with respect to their wilaya. It's the same relationship. The Khatam al-Anbiya will draw his vision of wilaya from the Mishkat al-Walaya Muhammadiyya. And then the commentator Dawood al-Qaysari قدس الله سره says ولكن لا فضل. This does not make the Khatam al-Muhammadiyya superior to the Khatam al-Anbiya, because the Shaykh al-Akbar will clarify that the Khatam al-Muhammadiyya هو حسنة من حسنات خاتم المرسل Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He is one of the adornments of honor that belongs to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the badges of honor, if you like. This does not make him superior. And with that, the walaya, which he must draw from from the Mishkat al-Wilayah Muhammadiyah, that wilayah still belongs to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How so? So Abdul Razak Qashani strikes a metaphor, and it is an appropriate metaphor, and it is the metaphor of the king and his kingdom, his treasure and his treasury, and who? The treasurer. Every king has a treasurer. Now, when the king wants to withdraw treasure from the basement, from the treasury, who does he have to go through? He has to go through the treasurer, even though the treasure, the wealth, belongs to him. The wealth belongs to him. It's his treasure. But he has to go through the treasure himself to obtain it. That is the correct relationship. And there's more to the subject as well. And so he says that the Khatam al-Wilayah Muhammadiyah is the warith. He's still the inheritor of the seal of the messengers. And so there's this intimate relationship between the two, right? And the seal of the messengers obtains his superiority by being what? By being the one who's the foremost in humanity. He is the Lord of the children of Adam. And he is the one who opens the gates of intercession. What are the gates of intercession? If there's anyone who doesn't know this. Irvina, bismillah.
I don't know it.
Okay, great. Then thank you for letting us know. Okay, so that is a...
I thought that you said, is there anyone who doesn't know it? So
this is a reference to the Day of Judgment, Yawm al-Qiyamah. What happens on the Day of Judgment? On the Day of Judgment, humanity will be in dire circumstances. We'll be in extreme need of intercession when the sun is brought down and everyone is drowning in their sweats. The sweat that arises from a person is in accordance with the sins or the mistakes he committed in his life. Some people have sweat up to their feet, some people up to their knees, and some people up to their chests, and other people, they'll be drowning in their sweat. So it will be a hard moment. So the people move from prophet to prophet saying, please intercede for us with Allah. And then each prophet will refuse to do so. They'll go to Adam alayhi salam, he won't do it. They'll go to Nuh alayhi salam, he won't do it. They'll go to Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, he won't do it. Then they go to Muhammad alayhi salam, and then he says, Ana laha. I am the one for this. And he goes to the throne and he prostrates himself to the throne on which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seated. And then Allah will inspire him to praise Allah with a new hamd, with a new praise that has not come about, that has not yet been uttered. He will only know it on the Day of Judgment. And Shaykh Al-Akbar himself says that he himself doesn't know what this hamd is. What is this praise? And then when he says it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, ask and you will be granted it. So Rasulullah asks to intercede. So he opens the gates of intercession, abwab al-shafa'ah, and that gives him permission to intercede for humanity, and therefore by extension only through Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the other prophets are given permission to intercede for humanity, and then through the prophets, what? The awliya and the mu'minun and salihun are given permission to intercede for humanity. So he is the one who opens the what? فَتَحَ بَابَ الشَّفَاعَةِ فَعَيَّنَ حَالًا خَاصًا مَعَمَّمْ. He is designated for this role, this state specifically. Rank is not a correct translation. It's state, even though like the meaning is kind of like rank, but it's actually state. This is his state, and he chooses this word deliberately, and you'll see why in a second. He doesn't have an all-encompassing. Sorry, yes, Farah, go ahead.
So basically, we've learned when we were kids that because as Muslims on Judgment Day that Muhammad will do the shafa'ah, but from what you're saying, it's as if on Judgment Day, people who have not witnessed Muhammad because they were not in the age of Muhammad would have the opportunity to acknowledge and validate that he's the prophet, kind of. And if they let go of their ego and their arrogance and they go to Muhammad and ask for his, assistance, then they are included in that shafa'ah. Is that what I'm understanding correctly?
Yeah, but sorry, what did you say about arrogance?
Like, some people on Judgment Day will still have the arrogance and the audacity not to believe in Muhammad, not to believe in God, not to believe in the Prophet.
Impossible.
And they might not want to.
No, impossible. Thank you for saying that.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
I get you now. Thank you. No, good question. Absolutely impossible. On the Day of Judgment, the Sheikh Al-Akbar says, so when the dust cloud departs, like horses and donkeys, when they kick up a dust storm, right? They kick the ground and dust is in the air. He says, when the dust clears, you will see which one of us is sitting on a horse and which one of us is sitting on a donkey. The Day of Judgment is the day of clarification. It is the day when every single thing becomes clear. There is no doubt on that day who the Lord is. There is no doubt who the highest being in existence is. Sayyid al-Kawnayn, Rasulullah. There'll be no doubt who are mu'minun, there'll be no doubt who are kuffar. And even the kuffar and mushrikun, whoever they are, will acknowledge what's called his siyada, his lordship over the whole of humanity. That day is the day when everything becomes detailed and clarified. There's a word for it, but it's not coming to my mind right now, because the Day of Judgment has many names. So that's not going to happen, because Allah will he will ascend to what's called Maqam Mahmud. It's called Maqam Mahmud because the whole of creation will be praising Rasulullah for that maqam. That's why it's called Maqam Mahmud, and only he gets it. So that is the day when the kuffar and mushrikun will acknowledge their Lord. That is the day they will acknowledge Rasulullah. But whether they benefit from it at that moment or not is a different question. You may not necessarily benefit from it at that moment. By the way, this question of salvation is good. Join my upcoming course next month. Very relevant. Because you also asked about what's called the Ahl Fatra, the people who never heard of him. That's a great question, but we cannot get into it now. Please join my upcoming course, which Josh will announce shortly. Actually, we'll both announce it actually, but that's very relevant for that. Irvina.
I have maybe one or two questions. I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Regarding the Khatam al-Awliya,
yes,
Khatam al-Anbiya, I was wondering, what are the specifics for these two? Like how to make? We know that Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam is the most beloved one. So we can say that he's the beloved of God.
Al-Habib, yes.
Al-Habib. And we know that, of course, he had the lost revelation too. But what's that specific difference between these two? Apart from Khatam al-Awliya, he doesn't have revelation as the Quran and the other revelations. I don't know if that makes sense.
Khatam al-Rasul, he has the right to establish a Sharia and to abrogate the previous Sharia. Khatam al-Muhammadiyya cannot establish a new Sharia. He cannot abrogate the Sharia that's already established. And that goes for all the awliya. Awliya are inheritors. So Khatam al-Muhammadiyya is an inheritor, whereas the Khatam al-Rasul is a trailblazer. He forges the road. The other awliya, including Khatam al-Muhammadiyya, follow the road. One makes the road, one follows the road. And so when you make a road, there's footsteps. That's why we say, are you upon the footsteps of a certain prophet? So he's looking for the footsteps of Muhammad Sallallahu
Mm. So
That's the difference.
And I want to connect this with the example you gave us from Kashani. I think that you said that it's the example of the king, treasure, and treasurer. Is that what you said? So there are three.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
The treasurer is the one who protects the treasure, or?
Yes, he guards it from the thieves.
So
yes,
the
exactly.
king in this case is Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam.
Yes.
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 The treasurer is Ibn Arabi.
Yes.
What's the treasure?
Walaya. Beit Walaya.
Yeah, but
Yes.
what's that specific attribute of a wali that is, basically, I don't know, maybe it cannot be expressed in words. I get that, if that's the answer to.
The wali.
What can Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam get from the treasurer, in a way?
Knowledge of Allah. Knowledge of walaya. And then you have to ask, what is walaya? But it's actually knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is knowledge of the way he manifests himself in creation in 3 dimensions. في توحيد الأفعال and توحيد الصفات and توحيد الذات. But what Sheikh Akbar can't get are the hukms, the revelation of ahkam. So you would have taken this lesson before, because this comes in the previous part of the chapter. And this is when he's saying there are certain things that the Khatm al-Muhammadiyya can know more than the Khatm al-Rasul. And it's an astonishing claim. And it's upset many people, but that's Sheikh al-Akbar's claim. So he gives the example of how someone can be more experienced in walaya than a Nabi. And a wali cannot know the knowledge of Nabuwah that a Nabi has. So there's a kind of symmetry. So he gives you the example of Sayyidina Umar. If you remember the example of 2 examples, the example of Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab and the example of the nakhla, the palm tree. Can anyone just briefly explain those 2 episodes? So here are the 2 episodes that he mentions in prior to this passage, in the previous pages. So he says, if you don't believe me, then look at these 2 examples. There was a time when Rasulullah told the Sahaba, when they were pollinating palm trees, he said, you know what? You don't have to do that. You know, if you have, maybe Allah will feed you from himself. So the Sahaba said, okay. They tried that. And then the palm trees did not produce fruit. So then Rasulullah said, listen, when it comes to the affairs of this dunya, you know better than I do. And what the Amir Abdul Qadir Jazairi explained was that, because some ignorant people said it means Rasulullah has no knowledge of agriculture. And he says this is false. He has good knowledge. Every prophet has sound knowledge of his environment. It's just that he wanted to develop their tawakkul. So, because there's a same miracle. When your tawakkul is superior, Allah will let you eat from beneath your feet. That's tawakkul. Like Dhul Nun Misri, he saw a man who was blind. Actually, no, he saw a bird, wasn't it? He saw a blind bird, and then when it wanted to drink water, it drank from a silver tray of water, and when it wanted to eat, it ate from a gold tray of seeds. And he just cried when he saw the level of tawakkul. And there's another saint that Sheikh al-Akbar mentions, the Kitab al-Ajwaba. There's a famine in the city, and the righteous man went to the known wali in the mountain and said, please, there's a famine, we need water, ask Allah for water. So the wali just told him, listen, sustenance that doesn't come from the asbab, like look. And he was a baker, so he took like the what's called a saj, by the way. We have this till today. You use it to make thin bread. He took the metal sheet called a saj from out of the oven, and then he said, look. And he saw, and then the righteous man, saw a seed or even a grain of wheat growing from the hot saj pan that was in the fire, which would normally burn it. So Allah subhanahu, He's the creator of asbab. He's not determined by the asbab, right? So Emir al-Jazairi said that was an example of Rasul wanting to raise their tawakkul, right? But what's tawakkul? It's a form of saintly knowledge. So another saint would have said, no, you won't be granted tawakkul in this case. So then the Shaykh specifies the question you're asking, which is the Prophet's business is revelation. Even though he has superior and excels in walaya, obviously. But above walaya, he knows the business of revelation prophecy better than walaya. So here comes the example of Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab and the prisoners of Badr. What happens, and this is well known in Sirah, and even in the Quran, because this is an episode that's mentioned in the Quran, so this comes into tafsir as well. When the Battle of Badr was won and they took the prisoners in, there was a debate of what to do with the prisoners. What was the debate? The debate
either kill
was,
them or something else. It was
yes,
killing them was an option.
Take them as prisoners or execute them.
Yeah.
Right? So saying Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he had a very soft heart. And Rasulullah he inclines towards Rahmah. So they said, no, we're going to take them prisoner. Umar bin Khattab said that's the wrong decision. They should be executed. Then came down the revelation. What did the revelation say?
You're not allowed to take prisoners, right?
No. You are allowed to take prisoners, but just in that specific instance.
Quran, there was one
There's another verse in the Quran which says,
yeah.
Okay, so there's another verse in the Quran which says, let them hear the word of Allah, right? So that means you can take prisoners. But we're not talking about in general, which you can. We're talking about specifically in that specific instance, revelation came down that said they should have been executed. And so Umar bin Khattab, he was right. Why did Rasulullah get it wrong in that instance? Because his knowledge is to do with revelation. It's not to do with walaya. So the business of the Khatam Walaya Muhammadiyah is to do with walaya. He doesn't know anything about Nubuwah. He can't. He can only know something about Nubuwah by way of being informed about it. He can't know it himself, right? Similarly, or maybe not similarly, but the Prophet, he knows walaya and Nubuwah, but his focus is on Nubuwah. It's not on walaya, even though he excels in walaya, clearly. So that's the difference, right? Salman, yes, Bismillah.
Sorry, I just have one question. Earlier it was mentioned about the treasure and the treasury, right? Sorry, am I audible?
You are, but could you raise your voice?
Sorry, give me. Hi, is this better?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, so basically there was this discussion about the treasure and the treasury, right? And I couldn't help but connect it to one of the hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said that in one of my sleep, I was given the keys to the treasures of the world.
Absolutely.
So is this the same treasure we're talking about? How does that relate to this?
Okay, interesting question. I understood that those are two different treasures. When I was given the keys, mafatih to the khaza'in al-ard, right? He's not talking about wilaya. That's a different kind of treasury. And of course, there's many kinds of treasures and treasure chests, clearly. I'd have to think again as to what he meant by those specific treasures. But what I remember, if I'm not mistaken, is that it's connected to the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the entire earth a masjid for him. So you can pray anywhere, right? It's not like the previous revelations where you can only encounter what's called the divine Shekinah or Sakina in a temple, in a synagogue, in a certain specific place. You can encounter the divine presence in any place on earth. That's connected to being given the treasuries of the earth. And the Shaykh Allah talks about it, but I'd have to get back to you as to exactly what it is. but that's different to the Beit al-Mal al-Walaya. Beit al-Walaya, the treasury of sainthood. That's different.
I just remember just quickly that one of the interpretations my Sheikh gave me years ago when I read Hadith, he said that this was about the ability for the Prophet to be granted the ability to basically bend Sharia, that he was given that as a treasure, that if he wants to make a change in the Sharia, he has
Of
that
course.
authority. So
Absolutely.
like maybe this could be that treasure.
No, he's talking about a different one. But I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, he has the right to change the Sharia without a shadow of a doubt, and certainly that's a treasure. But what is the specific hadith specifically referring to? I'd have to think about it. Let me think about it and get back to you, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Faris.
Wa alaikum salam.
I have a follow-up question about the treasurer and
Yes.
treasure. Is there time to ask?
Yes, there is time to ask. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
I'm gonna do Maghrib in about 5 minutes, so you guys can chat for a couple minutes, and then I'll come back. But please go ahead and ask.
Okay, so what I understand from the analogy is that the prophet has knowledge of the treasure, but he cannot access the treasure of the wilaya except through Ibn Arabi, or he does not have knowledge of the treasure as well. Because I am one, because in the analogy that you explained, it's just that the king cannot access or he requires the treasurer to bring the treasure to him. But what about the knowledge that the prophet has of the wilaya? Is that also lacking somehow, or
Okay,
is it
so
just that he cannot access it?
so you're along the right. This is along the right lines. You're thinking
Okay.
along the right lines. It's not that we say he lacks something. It's more like any knowledge he has of wilaya comes by way of that mishkat. Comes by way of the mishkat of wilaya of the Khatam Wilaya al-Muhammadiyah. For the seal of Muhammad sainthood. It comes through that niche, through his niche. Any kind of wilaya he knows, it comes from that niche, even though strangely it belongs to him.
Yeah,
So
that's what I don't understand. How does it belong to him, and yet he cannot access it except through the niche?
Well, I mean, that's why we have the analogy of the king and the treasure. I mean, technically, the king could just tell the treasure, get out of my way, but he won't, because the treasure has a function. The treasure has a divine function to guard that Beit Mal, that treasury. It's just that you gotta go through him, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
So the treasurer knows the treasure, but when he wants it, he asks for it from the treasurer. That's the connection.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, let me just finish up this small point on the Day of Judgment, and then I'm going to pray Maghrib for about a couple minutes and come back to you guys so that I don't miss it. So basically, we were talking about the Day of Judgment, opening the gates of intercession, right? So he opens the gates of intercession. That's his role on the Day of Judgment. It's a major role, and it's well established by the Islamic tradition and the Hadith. This is not anything specific to Shaykh al-Akbar at all. Huwa Sayyid Bani Adam. He is the Lord of the children of Adam on the Day of Judgment, right? So he was elected for this specific role, and this is why he outstrips any other person on the Day of Judgment, and that will become clear on the Day of Judgment. So he says, وفي هذا الحال الخاص تقدم على الأسماء الإلهية. So he says, even in the specific state. That's why he doesn't say daraja, he doesn't say maqam, he says hal, but he takes precedence over the divine names themselves on the Day of Judgment. What is he talking about? Because this is a bit abstract. What does he mean by the divine names and on the Day of Judgment? What does that mean?
Is it that apparently, like, you know, when one of the names like al-Muntaqim is in force, for example, or like is in manifestation, and then Ar-Rahman is going to come and sort of but like counter it. And I'm assuming that means that even that's not going to be enough for, I guess, our sins or whatever. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has to step in.
For sure, the divine names, as you know and will know, with regard to Shaykh al-Akbar's metaphysics, they produce their effects upon creation perpetually, for sure. Here, he's talking about something that's even in reference to a hadith itself as well, on top of what you just said, right? And it is this: the prophets will intercede for the people. Rasul is naturally the first one to do so. Then the prophets after him, then the mu'minun after him. Then there will be a group of people in the fire. Their numbers are like the number of ants. They are a great number of people. They are the ones who never had even what's called a dhurra, an atom of weight of faith in a divine law. They never had faith in any divine laws, but they knew rationally that Allah is one. They knew that Allah is La ilaha illallah, but they didn't have faith in a divine law. Those ones will be taken out of the fire by Arhamar Rahimin. So if you just read the hadith normally, it just sounds like that means Allah, which is correct. Allah will take them out of the fire himself. But when you read through the metaphysics of Shaykh al-Akbar, it's a specific divine name that takes them out of the fire, which is Arhamar Rahimin. And so if you say, what's the difference between saying Allah takes them out of the fire and Arhamar Rahimin takes them out of the fire? Well, from one perspective, there is no difference. But from another perspective, the names in Shaykh al-Akbar's metaphysics are beings. They are beings. Which is a really strange thing to say. Because a name is a quality that designates a description of someone, and it is a non-existent entity. It's ma'doom. It's just a nisba. Like if I say Faris the father, Faris the son, Faris the teacher, Faris the nephew, Faris the grandson, you don't say there's like 5 different Farises. They all denote one Faris, right? They all denote one Faris, which is correct, right? That's why, in a way, we say that the mushrikun are cross-eyed. They see double, but there's only one thing, right? But here's the thing. In Shaykh al-Akbar's metaphysics, you're ma'doom, I'm ma'doom, you're non-existent, I'm non-existent as well. And yet, here we are. The table is non-existent, but it's here. So the names are beings, even though they're all Allah. So it is Arhamar Rahimin who will take them out of the fire. But the name, in terms of ranking, rank, file, and order, comes last. So who's the first to intercede? Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The name in English, Arhamar Rahimin, is the most merciful of the merciful. Ar-Rahman, T. Petro, is the most merciful. And Arhamar Rahimin is a superlative. It's the most merciful of the merciful. So Muhammad is the first to intercede. He's the first to intercede. So he precedes them. So he is even superior in that state, not in degree of maqam, na'udhu billah, but in that state, he's superior even to the divine names. That's the preference Allah has given him above all else. So فَفَازْ Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he has won that degree of siyada in the specific maqam. If you had a maqam al-khas, فَفَازْ بِالسِّيَادَة في هذا المقام الخاص. فَمَنْ فَهِمَ الْمَرَاتِب, who understands the different degrees of existence and being and the stations, this idea is not heavy on him. It's not impossible. May I leave you for 5 minutes, please, Joshua? I will mute myself. If you guys can have a brief discussion, and I'll pray Maghrib and come back. The ones that are the higher levels of wilaya tend to be the ones that are unearned, that are by election. Although they still work, clearly. There's an interesting question from so thank you, Zanira. That was good. there was an interesting question from Sidi Nadir, right? Yes. So this is really interesting because what the Shaykh Al-Akbar says about Insan Kamil, which is the inheritance of Sayyidina Adam, alayhi salam, right? Is that what the limbs of your body are to you, the way you wield your limbs, you control your fingers, you manipulate your muscles. That's what the Asma al-Ilahiyya are to Insan al-Kamil. That's how they wield the divine names. So that is right. And so you can be healthy and harmonious in the divine names, or you can be imbalanced, maybe obese with one name. Like Pharaoh was obese and overweight, imbalanced with the divine name Al-Jabbar, which turns him into a tyrant, right? So all of creation, because that's our inheritance, wields the divine names. But the ones who we don't actually wield them. We come under their hukm and property and control, right? But if you're Insan Kamil, you actually wield them. Yes, Rabina.
I have read it in flashes, the Divine Flashes, Fakhruddin Iraqi. I
Yes.
think that it's in the beginning of it that, in a way, he concludes that the greatest name is Muhammad alayhi salam himself.
Allah.
Is that like, have you read
Lots
it?
of, yeah. So even if I'm not mistaken, Sayyidina al-Qunawi, Qaddasallahu sirruhu, said the same thing. I think this is a Fususian idea that the greatest name of Allah is Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You could also say the greatest name of Allah is Abd. And who's the greatest Abd? Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. These things circle back to one another. And then, that's such a big subject. And then Sayyidina Abu Yazid al-Bastami was asked, teach me the greatest name of Allah. He's like, why don't you show me the smaller name? So that I can show you the greater name, right?
Sana?
Yeah, Dr. Faiz, I have a question about the example of the anecdote of the palm trees and the Battle of
Yes.
Badr. And I'm still struggling to understand how the prophets, I don't want to say lack of knowledge about those worldly affairs, but how does that relate to his him not having the wilaya? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like
Yes, of
I don't
course.
understand because
It's
how when I read those anecdotes, I understood that the prophet does not. I thought that those anecdotes showed that he was also a human being and he didn't know about all the worldly matters in that sense. But I didn't read them from the Wilaya perspective. If you could explain that a little more, I would appreciate it.
yes. There's lots of episodes in life of Rasulullah where you think it's a human event. It seems that way. Then Sheikh Al-Akbar comes along and he says, no, there's more to it than that. And he says, there's way more to it than that. I'll give you an example. So when he's giving the khutbah in the mosque and he sees his grandkids, who are his grandkids? Sayyidina Hassan and Hussein, alayhum as-salam, running into the mosque, and they run up to their grandfather. He bends down and picks them up and plays with them. And then some people in the Jama'ah are like, does he have nothing better to do? Right? Is this what a prophet does? So you could say that it's out of his love for his grandchildren that he did that. And that's a perfectly fine interpretation. But the Shaykh al-Akbar will tell you, but Rasulullah, he's a lordly being, Rabbani. He only cares about his Lord. So don't underestimate what he does. Don't underestimate what you see. So when he's picking up his grandchildren, it is a divine business because he's seeing the face of God in them. His business is the divine, nothing else. That's why Shaykh al-Akbar says that the prophets, if they did not see the divine in the whole of creation, they would never have loved woman or child. And then what's Faris Muhammad about? It's all about seeing the divine in women when we come to Faris Muhammad in the next century. So, because of that, when we are talking about the episode of the palm tree and the episode of the prisoners of Badr, yes, his business is Allah, but as a prophet, his business is specifically to do with the revelation he receives from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not that different to the episode you'll find Surah Al-Kahf between who? Sayyidina Khidr alayhi salam and Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. It's kind of analogous to that because Sayyidina Khidr told Sayyidina Musa, there are some things you know that I don't know, and there are some things that I know that you don't know, and vice versa, right? Because the business of Sayyidina Musa is the Torah and the revelation that comes from Allah and what he is commanded to do with establishing the revelation and creation. It's the same with Rasulullah. That's his particular business, prophethood. And he has great knowledge in Walaya, but the business of Walaya belongs to who? The Khatam Walaya al-Muhammadiyya, the seal of Muhammad sainthood. That's his business. And that's why the knowledge of the seal of Muhammad sainthood in Walaya excels the knowledge of Rasulullah with regard to Walaya, not with regard to prophethood. Even though, strangely enough, Rasulullah, he's the owner of that treasury of sainthood. So it's like Ravina said, it's one of those many paradoxes that blows your mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with regard to the palm trees, it's not about a worldly affair. Like we're talking about worldly affairs, right?
Mm-hmm.
His business is the divine. So when he told the companions, why don't you try not pollinating the palm trees? It's wrong to assume he has no knowledge of agriculture. That's wrong. It's wrong to assume that his knowledge of pollination is weak. That's wrong. He knew pollination very well. He knew the laws and the natural laws of pollination and agriculture very well. What he was trying to do was to get them to experience a divine miracle by letting the food grow miraculously as a way of attaining the maqam of tawakkul. What is tawakkul? Reliance on God only and not the asbab, the means. What's the translation for asbab? The causes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you pollinate the palm tree, the causation, then the causation is that it grows. But is there a way to make it grow without causation? By a divine miracle, by depending on Allah. That's what he wanted to do.
Maybe we can, Salman, I'm sorry, your hand is first, but Noor has her hand up and she hasn't spoken yet. So maybe we can take from Noor or
Bismillah.
Noor, if you want, please put your hand down. So
Yeah, I would like to phrase it very gently because I'm still struggling to phrase the question in my head. Going back a bit in time during Yusuf alayhi salam's time, when he was when he was thrown into the well, as a worldly perspective, we see it as something that's like it's really bad that happened to a prophet. But as you are saying, for prophets, everything they're seeing God, everything is divine. is this interpretation also the same in his case here?
It should be. It should be. Say Yusuf alayhi salam never lost faith for one moment in his Lord, and he was raised by Sayyidina Yaqub alayhi salam, a family of prophets. So when he's thrown into the well, I don't think we're told in the surah what he feels. If someone knows, then correct me. But the assumption is that he was not worried for 1 second, or even if he was worried, he did not lose any kind of faith in his Lord for 1 second. Like so in other words, he sees the hand of Allah in that. That should be the interpretation. You're right. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sidi Suhail, right?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Faris. How are you doing?
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you.
MashaAllah, good to see you again, and again another great session. Alhamdulillah. So I had a question about something that Imam al-Busayri mentions in his in the book that he says, وَمِنْ عُلُومِكَ عِلْمَ اللَّوْحِ وَمِنْ عُلُومِكَ عِلْمُ اللَّوْحِ وَالْقَلَمِ. It is from your knowledge, the knowledge that is that exists in the lawh that was written by the qalam. I was wondering, so basically the commentators on this poem, they say that the reason why the knowledge of the Prophet ﷺ is greater than what's written in the lawh is because the knowledge of the lawh ends when the people of Jannah enter Jannah and the people of Nar enter Nar. May Allah Azza wa Jalla protect all of us. However, the knowledge of the Prophet ﷺ goes beyond that. I was wondering if Ibn Arabi Qaddasallahu sirrahu mentions the relationship between the knowledge of sainthood and the knowledge that exists in the lawh.
Oh yeah, he must have said something about it. He does, but I've not come across it personally. But I'm pretty certain that he's talked about the Lawh al-Mahfuz. Actually, if you go back to the beginning of this fuss, this is precisely the knowledge he'll talk about, just not with reference to the Lawh itself. There's undoubtedly a connection between the two, because one of the major knowledges that is granted to the higher saints who have this knowledge that arises from this fuss, from Sayyidina Shith alayhi salam, is the knowledge of predestination. Undoubtedly, that is contained in the Lawh al-Mahfuz. And he mentions that in the beginning of this fuss. And so that's obviously connected to the question of divine gift giving, because a saint will never ask for a gift from Allah that wasn't destined for him. He has better manners than that.
I see. Jazakallah khair.
Allah yabarak feek.